Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We come to you every weekday at 3 Eastern live on the Action Network YouTube and the Action app. But if you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on demand. Happy Monday. We have a lot to get into. Firstly, NBA playoffs reaction. But before we do that and welcome in Matt Moore, I just want to let you know as well that baseball, NFL draft, NHL, it's all going to be covered. But in the aforementioned NBA, I am joined by Matt Moore to not only preview tonight's slate, but to get a little reaction, of course, from what we saw over the weekend. And we know the winners and losers on the floor, but you're mad about some coaching performances, I hear. So why don't you sound off?
Thanks, Maria. So you know what the bar is for you to get outcoached by Tom Thibodeau in a playoff series? Tom's 46% against the spread in the playoffs. He's one of the worst playoff coaches. His teams never have a higher ceiling because all you really have to do is you just have to bring the requisite playoff effort. And somehow JB Bickerstaff has been absolutely worked by Tom Thibodeau in the series. Worked. He's seen all these minutes where the Cavs are getting absolutely dominated on the offensive glass. He's got Isaac Okoro, who, by the way, has the best team offensive rebound or defensive rebound percentage when he's on the floor. He helps against guys like, Josh Hart, who has like 1 million offensive rebounds in this series. Isaac Okoro misses 2 threes. Yanked. Got to get him out of there. Got to get Karis LeVert back in, who is an absolute traffic cone. Playing Chetty Osman 20 minutes. What are we doing, JB? What are we doing in this series? The Knicks have literally won a series with offensive rebounds and hustle plays. The Cavs are getting outworked. They're just getting outplayed in a playoff series. And honestly, a lot of it doesn't even have to do with the players' effort themselves. It's about the adjustments or lack thereof that JB has brought. It's been absolutely terrible. Not just him, though. Got some problems with Taylor Jenkins as well. In the series versus the Lakers, the Grizzlies have absolutely played into the Lakers' strength. They haven't stretched the ball out. They haven't played Luke Kennard to try and boost their offensive rating. It's been the best when Kennard's been on the floor. That's the only time the Grizzlies can really score. But they keep going big, trying to battle with Xavier Tillman, who honestly has put in pretty good work. Xavier's playing well, but they can't win those minutes because they're going up against a much better team in that style. The Grizzlies are trying to out-physical a team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James when they don't have Brandon Clark and they don't have Steven Adams. It's been absolutely playing into the worst kind of anticipation. It's been really tough. Plus, if you want to talk about the winners, though, I mentioned Tom Thibodeau. He's pushed all the right buttons. He's gotten Jalen Brunson in space. They've targeted Darius Garland on switches. Thibodeau's had probably his best playoff series I may have ever seen him have as a head coach in terms of coaching. He has dominated this matchup. He's been great. Darvin Ham on the other side has been excellent. Trusting Rui Hachimura, pulling him out when he was out of the rotation. Ham and Thibodeau, I think, are your biggest coaching winners of the first round.
Now, how does this compare to sort of what you expected to happen? And is it clear now? I mean, clearly in the Knicks-Cavs series, it seems like the Knicks are going to take it. And we'll get into the Lakers and Grizzlies a bit more. But just like, how does this compare to where you thought it would be?
I mean, I think the opposite in the case of the Cavs and the Knicks. I really expected with the Cavs having such dominant starters. Their starters won the season series. They have the best player on the floor in Donovan Mitchell. He hasn't played like in this series, but he's clearly the best player. They have what should be, honestly, the third and fourth best players, if not second, quite honestly, with Darius Garland, an all-star caliber player, Evan Mobley. Like, they have the more talented team. And so if Thibodeau is able to get this kind of advantage, it's a real tip of the cap to him, I think. I'm not sure that's going to hold up next round when he's going up against either Mike Budenholzer or Eric Spoelstra if they advance. They're going to have to get through the Cavs, though. They are going to have to go on the road to win a Game 5. We'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later on.
All right. Sounds like a plan. As far as tonight, we have Miami, home dog, though they're up 2-1 on Milwaukee. Now, Giannis is expected to make his return. So what's your pick in this one?
Yeah, I'm going the over 216.5. The Heat have been shooting the absolute lights out in this series, which you always worry about regression a little bit. But I try not to go ahead and jump ahead on those regressions. You don't want to be trying to anticipating that there's going to be this instant shooting regression because honestly, the Heat have shot well in most of the series throughout most of these minutes. We don't know if Jimmy Butler's going to play. I will say that if Butler doesn't play, I think there's actually an impact on the other end where the Bucks are able to get out and transition easier, force more turnovers, and that's going to boost them. Giannis back tonight. He's expected to play. That's going to boost their transition attack. The Bucks have not been able to get out and transition effectively. Giannis will push the pace. He'll score points off of free throws, getting downhill, as well as I think the Bucks will just play with a lot more intensity. I like the over 216.5. This number has been adjusted too far down. I put this way up in the 220s. I think the over 216.5 is a good play tonight when you've got the Heat facing off against the Bucks.
And how about the nightcap? So Lakers are favored at home with that 2-1 series lead on Memphis. What's your take?
I lean Memphis here just in kind of a bounce back spot. I don't necessarily think that the Lakers are so good, even without Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, for them to be able to take a 3-1 series lead. We saw Ja came back and played awesome off that wrist injury in game 3. So I don't think that I want to bet the Lakers here, but I can't take the Grizzlies either. The Grizzlies have been absolutely terrible on the road this season. 0-16 straight up as a road dog, 2-15 against the spread. They have been absolutely terrible as a road dog. That continues in the spot. So it's enough for me to stay away from this game. I think I'm going to go ahead and just I've got Lakers for the series. I'll feel good about that either way that this game comes out. I lean towards Grizzlies, but I'm going to stay away in this one.
Fair enough. And just to reiterate, liking Lakers in the series, that's interesting. And tomorrow we have 3 teams that are playing at home and are up 3-1. Is there any team you like to extend a series?
Not to win straight up, but I did find an interesting kind of trend here, which is that I looked back at since 2003, teams that are up 3-1 at home, they win. They win an incredible amount of the time. They're 69-18, 79%, but they're only 48% against the spread, 41, 44-2. So what we see here is the market giving these teams at home a little bit too much credit, expecting teams to be like bettors to basically say, oh, this team's got it. They're up 3-1. They're at home. They're going to close it out. They'll demolish them. And instead, we've seen the dog cover the majority of the time in these types of situations. Now, that goes against another trend that we've highlighted on this show and in Action Network content in the app, and that's that teams that cover are 270-28. 270-28 straight up when they've covered the game. Over the last 3 seasons. It's been absolutely incredible in those kind of spots. A lot of opportunities there, I think, to kind of like try and balance that out. So in general, I will go ahead and say that I do kind of lean towards the dogs tomorrow, but I'll be cautious with it because of the recent trend of if you've covered the game, you've won outright.
Copy that. And just because we mentioned Knicks Cavs earlier, and the Knicks obviously up 3-1, they don't play until the following day, but they will be in Cleveland. So do you like the Cavs to extend at that point?
Maria, I like the Cavs in game 1. I like the Cavs in game 3. I like the Cavs in game 4. I can't do it. Please don't make me make a pick on the game.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to take the Cavs, and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and stay away. I'm going to sit out that series and hope that the Cavs can get back on track for my series.
Not asking you to make a pick. You just answered my question right there. So I appreciate it. Matt Moore, thanks as always for breaking down the NBA with us.
Thank you.
Over to MLB, nearly a month into the season, these teams are exceeding expectations. The first place Pirates are 23.5% of the way to topping their preseason win total. The only other team with a better record are the Rays, who are 21.4% of the way there. Orioles, Brewers, and Rangers are also on pace to surpass their totals. So now we bring in our MLB expert, Anthony Dabbundo. So the Pirates have won 7 straight. Are you buying them in the long term of the season?
I'm certainly buying them as being a competitive 500 ball club. I don't think they'll ultimately win the division, and I do think the Central's only going to get one team in the National League playoffs. But there's not that much fluke in this start. Pittsburgh's top 5 in expected weighted on base average. They've gotten more quality starts than any team in all of baseball. Do I expect Vince Velasquez and Rich Hill to continue to put up, excellent quality start numbers at the back end of the rotation? No, but there's also reasons to believe in this team because of the players they have potentially coming through. Luis Ortiz is in AAA. He's got excellent stuff as a potential starting pitching prospect that we could see come up if one of those starters starts to falter as we go down the season. And one of the best catching prospects, arguably the best catching prospect in baseball, Endy Rodriguez, is sitting there in AAA as well. He's very ready to play in the majors at this point. It's more a matter of when they call him up, not if. And once they do, this lineup has some depth, and it's a good combination of young, surging young players, and then some veterans like Andrew McCutchen and Carlos Santana that are having renaissance seasons late in their careers. So yeah, I'm buying Pittsburgh as a 500 team. Again, I think ultimately I'm not quite buying the pitching enough to sustain it, but certainly the injury to O'Neal Cruz also hurts quite a bit, given that his superstar potential may have carried them into the playoffs. I think without Cruz, they're just going to come up a little bit short. They have benefited from a pretty friendly schedule. They beat up on the Reds and the Rockies this week. They got to play Boston when Boston's pitching's in a bit of a mess. So they have had some favorable matchups early in the season. Don't necessarily see that continuing, but they do have the Dodgers this week, and they're catching some of the Dodgers' worst starters. So it certainly will be an interesting matchup this week in Pittsburgh.
Well, as you could tell by our graphic, we listed a few teams. So the Pirates are not the only ones exceeding expectations at this point. You got the O's, Brewers, Rangers. Is there anyone else you think is for real at this point?
I'm certainly buying the Orioles. They designated Cole Irvin for assignment, one of the worst starting pitchers they had in that rotation. They're giving opportunities to their young guys, Grayson Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish, the two guys that are really popping in the early season. I know Grayson's had some walk issues, but his stuff is so good. He's a top pitching prospect for a reason. And Bradish has really put things together the last 8 months or so since the middle of last season, been a very good pitcher when he's been out there. So those two guys, I think, can, put together a rotation with Tyler Wells, another young arm. A lot of the underlying pitching metrics like this Orioles staff more than maybe the top line names would suggest. So those three, certainly a capable front group, may even get John Means back later in the season. And they have a ton of other prospects waiting in the wings that could make impacts, whether it's Jordan Westberg he's in AAA right now. So they have other pieces that could come along and push, make appearances this season. So I'm buying the Orioles as a real wild card threat. I don't think they'll catch the Rays, but they're certainly a team that I would not be surprised to see in the playoffs.
Okay, well, let's get into your picks for tonight. What's on your radar?
Yeah, so the game of the night is probably the Astros and the Rays. The Astros, I was hoping to get in on some Astros futures. They went and swept Atlanta and pretty much took all the value out of that. Now they're still minus 150 to win the division. I actually like the under tonight in that matchup. It's Taj Bradley going for the Rays. He's the yet another phenom young starting pitcher for the Rays. They seem to have dozens of them. Bradley's fastball graded as one of the 5 best fastballs in all of Major League Baseball in his first 2 starts. So that shows you how dominant his stuff can be. And his stuff plus overall is top 10 in baseball. So Bradley's legit, no fluke there. Jose Urquidy's a tricky pitcher to really decipher because traditionally his stuff plays much better at home than it does on the road. And that shows up in his strikeout numbers and his quality of contact numbers. But part of the reason his stuff plays better at home is the controlled environment in the Dome in Houston so often. Tonight he'll be playing in the Trop, which is also a dome. So I'm not too worried about Urquidy. I'm going to bet the under here. Both offenses are in their worst offensive split. And MLB closed domes with a total 8.5 or higher since 2003. Under hits 54%. It's a huge sample trend, especially with the Rays, the Trop. Their games, anytime it's totaled over 8.5, just tends to be a touch high. So I like the under 8.5 in that game, minus 115 out there right now in that one.
Okay, and I know that's not the only pick you have, so what else?
Yeah, I think I joked last week. I made the Jared joke about going to Driveline. Well, Brad Keller's another candidate, and he's made another huge jump this season. He's only 27. It feels like he's been in the majors forever. He debuted at 22 for the Royals. He's going up against the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. I like the Royals in the first 5 innings. I think they should be a favorite here. You can still find plus money out there. I think they should be closer to minus 110 in the first 5. I know they've been the worst team in baseball. The biggest edge in this game is probably Arizona's defense, which is much better than Kansas City's. But the pitching advantage is clear for Kansas City here. Keller's xERA is below 4 for the first time in his career. His strikeout rate's over 20%. He's added a curveball. He's been tweaking with the sweeper that he's used that's gotten a lot more whiffs. So you're seeing real improvement from Keller. Tommy Henry is really a filler starter. This was supposed to be Madison Bumgarner. They designated him for assignment. He's done with the Diamondbacks. Henry's really just a fill-in until Brandon Pfaadt comes up. He had a 4.85 pitching plus projected ERA, over 5 xERA. This is not an MLB starting pitcher, really, and not even really a replacement level one. So I think this is a huge advantage in the pitching matchup for the Royals. So I like the Royals in the first 5 innings while the starters are in, especially.
All right, Royals first 5, also that under in the Astros Rays game. Anthony, thanks so much for the pointers.
Thanks for having me on. Go Bucks.
Ha. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We move over to NFL now. It is draft week, and throughout the last couple weeks, we've seen major line movement when it comes to the second overall pick. In particular, Will Levis was at plus 3,000 to be pick number 2, but as of now is the favorite at minus 145. So let's welcome in Luke Swain, aka Vegas Refund on Twitter, and Chris Raybon to get some draft preview. And for a while, the big question was, will CJ Stroud be picked first over Bryce Young? Now, Stroud might not even go second. Luke, what does all this line movement indicate to you?
So the Levis being like the minus 140, 145 to go second, like he shouldn't be those odds where Stroud has moved back. Where like really the only certainty I think we have at this point is it's not going to be Stroud at number 2. Where Levis shouldn't be a favorite for the number 2 pick at this point. But given how sensitive the market is, really just for a bunch of people were betting Levis because you hear a couple things about the Texans having Levis higher on their board relative to Stroud, and they might, but at the same time, they might not even take a quarterback. So if I was making the odds, I think it should just be even between Anderson, Levis, and Tyree. I don't think... Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We really don't know. And it was just a bunch of people betting Levis based off of what we heard about the Texans board. But he definitely should not be a minus 140 favorite at this point, at least in my opinion.
Raybon, what's your reaction to that? And are you staying away from making a pick at number 2?
Well, as of now, I think the best way to approach the number 2 pick would be to pick somebody who's not the favorite. I agree. I think Will Levis is overvalued. There were reports that the Vikings were going to trade up to number 2 and take him, and that's why I think he's jumped into the lead. Remember, these markets have pretty low limits, and so somebody max betting any particular thing in some cases could end up moving the line. But I don't think anyone knows anything. That's really the quote I'm hearing, is that we don't know what's going to go on. We don't know if the Texans are going to stay at number 2. We don't know if it's a smokescreen and they do want a quarterback. We don't know if the Stroud hate is a smokescreen in itself. We don't know if another team will trade up for Levis or for Stroud or just to get one of the defensive players. So there's a lot of question marks here where I think you have to kind of use uncertainty in your favor. And, Tyree Wilson right now is at plus 225. Will Anderson's at plus 350. Stroud is at plus 400. And even a guy like Anthony Richardson, still a long shot, obviously, but, 18-1. I think that's how you want to bet this number 2 pick is look at those longer shots because no one knows anything right now.
And like looking into like the ripple effect, where if you think Levis is going to, there's a totally different order from whether Levis goes to, Tyree goes to, Anderson goes to, where like picking a scenario and looking at picks 3, 4, 5 and finding value there instead of just focusing on 2, I really do think is the approach to take right now. Yeah, I totally agree.
It's a really tricky time. And obviously quarterbacks are always a big question mark, just how many are going to go. And in the first round, the over-under is set at 4.5. So the big question is, will Hendon Hooker go first round? Because that seems like it would be the one that would put you over. So, Luke, what do you think?
Personally, I just refuse to believe that Hendon Hooker can go in the first round. Where my stance on it, I'm staying at like not betting into this market with Hendon Hooker. I still don't think he will, but there are enough like quote-unquote mock draft or experts that we see putting him in the first. Where I think the thing you need to look into as the next couple of days progresses, if you start seeing Hendon Hooker in the first to the same team by the experts that we respect, like Jeremiah, Schrager, etc., like to me that means something compared to we saw Hendon Hooker in the first to a different team in every single mock draft where it implies that they just think he's worthy of a first round pick. Like I'm not buying that. But if every mock on guys that we respect is putting him to the Vikings, the Saints, the Titans, like that is something to me that they might know something. But other than that, like I just have no interest. Like this is one where like my personal opinion really is wavering. My thoughts on this, which I'm just going to stay away from it.
Raybon, how are you approaching this with regard to quarterbacks?
So, one of the things we got to remember is, even a lot of these mock draft experts and people who are, great at evaluating the talents on the board, it's still kind of a toss up as to where everyone's going to go. And obviously don't know trades and stuff like that. But one thing that's been, I would say, fairly consistent in terms of how to approach betting the draft is to kind of bet against quarterbacks. I think there's always so much hype coming into the draft about all the quarterbacks, and it's generally the guys that people know the most. And people are always wondering if teams are going to trade up for these quarterbacks. But if a quarterback like Hooker, he's already not going to go in the first few picks, he's not worthy of that, right? If that's the case, then I think that teams aren't going to be in a rush to take him in the first round. I think there is a very good chance that he would slip. So I would bet against him. The under 4.5 quarterbacks in the first round, you can get that about -105, and you can get Hooker over pick 31.5 at +110. So he could still go 32 even, but we just never know. Even some of the teams that are positioned to take him, late in that first round, they may trade back because, again, Hooker, it was not deemed like a top 5, top 10 pick. So in that scenario, the teams that are desperate for a quarterback, they're going to have their guys already early in the first round. So I think teams will be a lot more willing to trade back, not as worried that he's going to go. So I would bet the over on 31.5 and the under on 4.5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, 5 quarterbacks in the first round kind of sounds like a lot anyway for this quarterback draft class. Let me know, Luke, am I totally off base on that?
I mean, if there is a year it could happen, it would be this, where it's generally considered a weaker draft class where the talent in the drop-off is going to fall off when we get into the 20s, where best player available isn't going to be like almost a thing when we get into the late 20s because we really won't have one. Where team trading out, like trading in, a team might be more open to it given the drop-off in talent. But I mean, it's just I can't. Like I agree.
I'm with you.
Like the under was, I think the under was like -300 a couple weeks ago, which like just shows you how sensitive it is. And everyone's reading the same mock drafts, and you got guys like Peter Schrager putting him at pick 11. It's just it happens every year, and it just never works out.
And Luke, you warned us about this a couple weeks ago with just how sensitive this market is. And another example here with some crazy line movement has been Paris Johnson Jr. So there's been some rumors about him being a dark horse at number 3, looking at about +550 for that right now. But if he doesn't go there, where do you see him going?
So, yeah, I think they were like he was 100-1 to go number 3 a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Which I think Tony Pauline was the first one to report that the Cardinals might have interest. Which all of this is based off of the Cardinals not trading out of the number 3 pick, which every person you see that we respect, like the Jeremiahs, are just assuming it's going to happen. I think I've seen someone say there's like a 99% chance that the Cardinals are going to trade out. Where you can't. There's no team exact odds, which I would have the most interest in, like Cardinals to take Paris Johnson. But if you're just taking him at number 3 and the Cardinals trade out, like it's over. I mean, this is like exhibit A of how sensitive this market is. Where +500 is just insanity at this point. Like, just please no. But everything you read, like this morning, he really caught a lot of momentum where all of these rumor articles are coming out, and the most popular mock draft spot for Paris Johnson was probably the Bears at 9. And everything you read is he might not even make it there, which Jalen Carter falling really comes into fruition. Whether he does or not, like, depends on who you listen to. But his over-under was 9.5, and the under, of course, with everything going on this morning, is taking a lot of money. But top 10 is getting tight. Like, there's only so many people, of course, that can go. Where when you just make sure you're not betting too many people in the top 10 where you have to predict the exact order in order to hit them all, where one domino falls and they all lose.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it at plus 500, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I would have bet it at 100 to 1 a couple days ago.
That's definitely another word to the wise. And Raybon, before we go, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think with Johnson, to Luke's point, you don't want to bet the exact pick number, because this draft, anyone after the Panthers could trade back, and that affects the quarterbacks. That affects a guy like Paris Johnson. So if you notice, his over under is still at 9.5, with it a little bit juiced to the over, which signifies that the books still think he's going pick 10 or later. So keep that in mind. And I think with a lot of these kind of fringe top 10 guys, you can kind of get some value, as Luke alluded to, probably betting the over, on them going outside the top 10, because, there's a chance that teams, you look at like the high leverage positions, like a cornerback, and, teams trade up a couple of spots, maybe to grab a cornerback in that top 10. There's still the 3 or 4 quarterbacks that could go. There's still a number of edge rushers. So not everyone's going to go in the top 10. It's better to bet kind of against things in this draft than follow the buzz. That would be my kind of overarching theme here.
Well, we appreciate you guys breaking it down. Chris Raybon, Luke Swain, thanks for the time. We will talk to both of you later in the week. To hockey, and here are a few notable trends as we head into tonight's games. In the Toronto, Tampa Bay, and the Vegas Winnipeg series, the over is 3-0. In both cases, average goals per game are higher than tonight's listed totals. Also, the Rangers' Chris Kreider has scored in each playoff game to this point. He's at plus 180 to put one in the net tonight, while the Maple Leafs' Mitch Marner has had at least 2 points in each playoff game. He's at plus 148 to hit that mark tonight. With that, we say hello to our NHL analyst, Michael Leboff. Let's start with the first game on tap tonight. That's Devils Rangers at 7 Eastern. What's your play?
Yeah, I think that if you had told me before the series that I thought the under would correlate well with the Devils winning hockey games, I would have thought you were wrong. But with the way that these two teams matched up, everyone kind of expected the Devils to be a high-flying team, push play, the Rangers do what they do and sit back and counter and be clinical. But the Devils' style has just not meshed at all in the series. So now the Devils almost have to do what the Rangers do to teams to the Rangers, and be much more patient and composed on the puck, and disciplined, and keep the Rangers at 5-on-5 and keep things, stay above the puck, be in safe positions. And they did a pretty good job of that in game 3. And if that's going to be how New Jersey is going to play, especially on the road, I think that this game will look a lot like game 3, which is not a lot of space. The chances that are created aren't as high danger as what we saw for the Rangers in game 1 and 2. And plus the Devils look like they've adjusted a little bit to the Rangers power play. As you noted, Chris Kreider has basically been turned into Wayne Gretzky for the Rangers on the power play through the first 2 games. And the Devils decided to start marking him in front of the net, which was a good decision as well. So with those adjustments and the Devils' commitment to playing a more pragmatic, probing style rather than the up and down, rush heavy offense we saw out of them in the season, I think that this game looks like it could head towards the under. I would say that if I had to pick a side, I would lean towards New Jersey. Road teams have won 8 of the last 8 games in the NHL playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of people just blindly throw together a 4-team home team parlay today. But if I had to pick a side, I'd actually go with the road team in this one, but I like the under more.
You like the under more, but you also, with everything that you just outlined and that pace that you expect the Devils to continue to play with, having it go to OT at plus 320, yep. Definitely makes sense, especially, the Rangers, they could very well, win this game and they're looking for that 3-1 series lead, but with the craziness of hockey, I mean, that overtime would not surprise me. Next at 7:30 Eastern, the puck drops between the Lightning and Maple Leafs. Toronto is up 2-1 right now. What's your take on that series?
Yeah, this one is interesting because the Maple Leafs have been the worst team, I think, 2 out of the first 3 games. And they've got the 2-1 series lead, and their best game came in game 2 where Victor Hedman, one of the best defensemen on Tampa Bay's roster, was out. They were also missing Eric Chernak, who's missed most of the series already. So the only really emphatic showing we've seen out of Toronto was in game 2 in that win. And I'm wondering now if people are buying into the narrative that the Leafs have kind of got the monkey off their back too much, because this is a team, of course, that has plenty of playoff demons, and it's been a fan base that's been waiting for a moment like they got in game 3 where they were outplayed but won in overtime thanks to a great goaltending performance from Ilya Samsonov. But that's, I think, playing with fire a little bit. Tampa Bay has just looked generally solid from start to finish in the series. You throw out game 2, and I think you'd be crazy to suggest Toronto deserves the 2-1 series lead. If you want to say it should be 1-1 and then a toss-up, go right ahead. But Tampa Bay's really run the show here, and I don't expect that to stop. This is a team that has been here before. They were down 2-1 to the Leafs last year in round 1. They've come back in series deficits against the Rangers where they were down 2-0 last year in the Eastern Conference Final. They came down from a game down against the Islanders the year before that in the Eastern Conference Final. This is not a team that's just going to tap out, and the goaltending was supposed to be a pretty big advantage for Tampa Bay. It hasn't shown up yet, but I do trust Andrei Vasilevsky to kind of be the difference here as he snaps into form. He does tend to start series pretty slow, but once he has that one big performance, it becomes pretty tough for him to be beat. So I like Tampa Bay here, but I like them to win the series more than I like them to win the game. It's kind of like that Rangers-Devils pick a little bit, where rather than just play the under, I would go for a bigger price and back that game to go to overtime. And this one here, rather than just play that minus 110, if Tampa Bay does win, if you do think Tampa Bay can win, I think getting plus 280 on them to win the series is a good number, because then you're looking at, sure, they'll still be without home ice advantage, but in a best of 3 series against the Leafs, these two teams, maybe the difference isn't as wide as people thought coming in, and you're holding a plus 280 ticket on a best of 3. I think you'll be pretty happy with where you're sitting. So sure, you could go ahead and play Tampa on the money line. It's basically a pick 'em, or if you're feeling froggy, I think plus 280 on them to win the series is definitely an interesting price.
Froggy? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, feeling froggy. Like
Froggy?
frisky,
Feeling
froggy.
frisky? Okay, gotcha. Just want to make sure I understood you. But
Brave,
yeah. Hadn't heard that one before. But I do like the tip. The series score might not be indicative as to how closely contested the series has been. Rounding out tonight's slate, we have Vegas, Winnipeg, and Colorado, Seattle. Any other picks you like?
Yeah, I'll take a long shot here for the listeners. Neil Pionk should be running the first power play unit for Winnipeg with Josh Morrissey out. Pionk is a pretty solid NHL defenseman. He's decent going forward. Not someone that most people will pay attention to, but in this situation, with Winnipeg needing a win at home, they're going to need to be dynamic on the power play. They've got plenty of talent on the power play. Most of the time, penalty kills will set up to make sure they take away Kyle Connor, which will leave some space open for a player like Pionk on the point. And with Morrissey out, the usage should just trend up. And I don't really think bookmakers are going to be all that concerned with making sure they adjust Neil Pionk's odds as either an anytime goal scorer or first goal scorer, because he's just going to fly under the radar. But he should see some good opportunities. So, not a bet you should expect to win, but one that I like here, as he should hopefully be getting some decent usage on the power play and at 5-on-5 for Winnipeg.
Okay, finally, quick thought on your Islanders. They're down 3-1, heading back to Carolina tomorrow. I know not the spot that you wanted them to be in. What do you think?
Yeah, it's sad. And they're screwed, but they're not done, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell myself. But yeah, Friday night was a blast, and then Sunday was just an absolute mess. So, teams do come back from 3-1 series, every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I'm just trying to cope that way and hope that the season can continue to at least Friday for Game 6 back here on the island. But I don't feel too good about it. Thank you for asking.
Well, you're welcome, I guess. I mean, I kind of feel bad even bringing it up, but we know you're continuing to cope. We appreciate you joining Green Dot Daily.
You got it.
Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We have one bit of breaking news to let you know about before we let you go. ESPN just reported the Kings' De'Aaron Fox fractured the index finger on his shooting hand, so he will be listed as doubtful for Game 5 against the Warriors on Wednesday. The Warriors opened as 1-point underdogs for that game, but in just a short time since that news broke, they are now 3.5-point favorites. Look at that. And that's all we have for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again right here on Tuesday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube and the Action app.